Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is my Best of 2020 series. So in this first video in my series, I'm going to give you my favorite mysteries of 2020. So I thought, oh great, I'll do a top 10 list. And as I started looking at my books, I was looking on Goodreads and I thought I'll just go by, 4 and 5 star reads and see how we do. And it turned out that I had 23 books that were either 4.5 or 5 stars. So that got me thinking, what do I do now? So I decided to do my top 10 mysteries of 2020 plus 13 honorable mentions. Because why not? I love mysteries and I had a great reading year, and so I'm going to tell you about my 23 favorite mysteries of 2020. So I'm not going to go into any great detail about these books because I've talked about them all in previous videos. So I'm going to put up in the cards here a link to the playlist that I've created of my reading roundups where I talk about all these books, and I'm fairly certain that if you go into there, you should be able to search by book if you want to find what I have to say about a specific book. So let's just dive right in, and I'm going to start with the honorable mentions. The honorable mentions are in no order whatsoever, but then I'm going to do my top 10 list starting with number 10. Okay, so for honorable mentions, I gave all of these 4.5 stars, which means I really enjoyed them. The first up is The Figure in the Photograph by Kevin Sullivan. This is a new book out this year. And I think what I loved so much about this book was that it was about photography. It's a historical mystery, but the police ask the photographer to develop serial photographs for an investigation. So he sets it up so that the camera takes pictures of the exact same spot at specific times, like say one picture every 30 minutes or something like that, and he uses these serial photographs to help with an investigation, which I thought was really interesting. Next up is Pride and Prescience by Carrie. Bebris. I have a copy of this book, but I couldn't find it, so I'll just have to put a picture up. This is a historical mystery starring Mr. and Mrs. Darcie, and I just had a lot of fun reading this. It was a really fun reading experience. The author has an obvious love for Jane Austen and for Pride and Prejudice, and I thought that she recreated that world easily and she maintained the characters' personalities, and I just had a lot of fun reading it. Next up is And Dangerous to Know by Darcie Wilde. This is a Regency era mystery that was really fun, really interesting. There was great themes of power and class and reputation and secrets and trusts and loyalty, and I really enjoyed reading that. Next up is Death in 5 Boxes by Carter Dickson. This is a classic, one of his classic locked room and possible crime mysteries, and I loved the setup for this, the premise. So when they got into the room, they found like 6 people around a table. Let's see, 5. Yeah, 6 people around a table, but they had one was dead, but they had all been drugged, and so it was just a really fun impossible crime mystery. The Restless Dead by Simon Beckett. This is one of his David Hunter series, so it's he's a forensic anthropologist, and yeah, I just found it tense and exciting. Death in Captivity by Michael Gilbert. This is a classic locked room puzzle set in an Italian POW camp during World War II. I think what I liked the most about this was this unique setting for the mystery. He wrote it in 1950, I think, and as an author, he had spent some time himself in an Italian prisoner of war camp during the war, so he had some experiences to draw on, and it was just a really great mystery. The Cutting Place by Jane Casey. This is the newest in her Maeve Kerrigan series. Again, love that series. Compelling plot and great characters. Next up, An English Murder by Cyril Hare. This is a mystery he wrote in the 50s. It's an isolated, closed circle country house mystery that was just really fun. One of Our Thursdays is Missing by Jasper Fforde. This is part of his Thursday Next series. I just thought it was brilliant, and I loved all of the bookish references in it. The Victoria Vanishes by Christopher Fowler. This is from his Peculiar Crimes Unit series. I loved the quirkiness and the humor, and I loved the mystery in here and the interesting tidbits about London history. And then another one from the Maeve Kerrigan series, Cruel Acts by Jane Casey. This is right before The Cutting Place. I just really like this series. The character of D.S. Maeve Kerrigan, she is so well developed, and her relationship with D.I. Josh Derwent is complicated and frustrating and compelling, and really just, I think, one of the best parts of that series. And then finally, for honorable mentions, The Unexpected Inheritance of Inspector Chopra by Vaseem Khan. This one I just recently read, and I'm so glad I did, and I'm really excited to continue with this series. It's set in Mumbai, and my favorite part of that book, I think, was the scene where Inspector Chopra is trying to follow a suspect into a shopping mall with his elephant in tow. It was so entertaining. Okay, here we are. My top 10 mysteries of 2020. Number 10, Murder at Queen's Landing by Andrea Penrose. Great plot, plenty of murky suspects, lots of surprises, excellent character development, and the group ends up taking on a group within a powerful organization, and that's one of my favorite tropes, that David versus Goliath. I loved that book. It was great. 9, A Divided Loyalty by Charles Todd. This is from his Ian Rutledge series. It's a historical mystery set just after World War I. And I loved that this one was set in Avebury because I've been there, so I could totally picture what was happening. I also really loved the decisions that Rutledge had to make while he was investigating this particular case. Number 8, A Better Man by Louise Penny. This is not the latest, but the 2019, I think, in her Inspector Gamache series. And I loved the exploration of human nature in this book. Louise Penny is so good at writing real characters, people who are never 100% good or 100% bad. She has good characters doing bad things and bad characters doing good things, and so you never know what to expect because she writes that way, and it was really good. Number 7, Masquerade at Middlecrest Abbey by Abigail Wilson. This is a Regency romance, and it is exactly the kind of Regency romance that I like. Highwaymen and spies, disguises, marriages of convenience, codes, ciphers, murder. It was just so much fun. 6, The Blue by Nancy Bilyeau. This is also a historical mystery set in 18th century London, but I liked that there were so much in this book that felt unique, that doesn't really get talked about a lot in mysteries. So it was about the production of porcelain, but also the creation of colors to use on the porcelain, which was so interesting. It also had great characters. The main character was an English-born descendant of Huguenot refugees, and that was a really interesting part of the story as well. I just really, really liked that book. Here we go, my top 5. Coming in at number 5, Death at the Dance by Verity Bright. This is a historical mystery from the 1920s. This is actually the second in the series, but the first one that I read. And this book, I wrote this on Goodreads that this was the most fun that I had had reading a historical mystery in a long time. And it's totally true. I still remember it. I laughed out loud reading this book. And so sometimes you just want a book that is just so entertaining. And that's what this one was. I laughed out loud. I loved the character of Eleanor. I loved her butler, Clifford. I love her relationships with people in the book. And it was just a really, really fun mystery. Coming in at number 4, Murder by Milk Bottle by Lynne Truss. This was also a historical mystery set in Brighton in the 1950s, and it was also hilarious and quirky and witty, and I just really, really enjoyed it. Number 3, The Silent Wife by Karen Slaughter. The plot in this was fast-paced, complicated, and at times heartbreaking. The characters are extremely well drawn in this series with complicated histories that affect their current actions and relationships. And I really felt that this book was the payoff for reading the whole series. So starting with Grant County, where you first meet Sarah Linton, and moving on to the Will Trent series, and then brilliantly, Karen Slaughter combined those two series now into one. And this book, The Silent Wife, I feel like is the payoff for reading all of the previous books. It was so good. Coming in at number 2, Murder in Old Bombay by Nev March. This is a brand new book, just out, historical mystery set in India. But I felt that it was so much more than a historical mystery. It was epic. It was an epic story. It has romance and adventure and heartbreak. And it has themes of family, loyalty, secrets, love, history, reputation, religion, and patriotism. And I just loved it. Coming in at number 1, my absolute favorite mystery of 2020. Who Speaks for the Damned by C.S. Harris. This is from her Sebastian St. Cyr series. This is set in England in the early 1800s, and I loved it. I love this series. I have loved every book so far in this series, and I feel like she's just getting better and better, and this particular book in the series, it came out this year, was so good. It was so compelling. It was well researched and well written. And I think one of the things that I liked about the most was Sebastian's identification with the victim in this book, that he felt so often that it could have been him. The things that happened to the victim, the direction that his life took, it could have been him. And so there was a lot of ruminating while he was investigating, but it was just such a compelling story. It was so interesting. And the issues that it brings up about justice and revenge and social responsibility, like it was so good and well deserving of the number 1 spot in my list of favorite mysteries of 2020. So, what do you think? What would be your favorite mystery of 2020? I would love to hear about that in the comment section down below, and I will see you for my next top 10 list in my favorite books of 2020. Bye.